join in a little bit. Maka'ala is not able to join today, but we'll go ahead and start off with roll call. It is 1:03 p.m. on Tuesday, February 6, 2024. Calling the meeting to order for the Environmental Advisory Council. Onao Nothone, Chair of the Council. I'll start with you, Ron.
Ron Terry from the island of Hawaii.
Thank you. Robin.
Robin Kay, Island of Lanai.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Rachel.
Rachel calling in from the island. Rachel Sprague calling in from the island of Lanai.
Thanks, Rachel. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Hello, everyone. Steph Dunbar-Coe.
Thanks, Steph. Mary.
Mary Bajere, Hawaii Island.
Okay, thank you. Tessie.
Aloha, Tessie from Kauai.
Thanks, Tessie.
Tessie Kine.
Thank you. Michelle.
Hawaii Island.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. All right, I'll go to the ERP room. Mary Alice, do you want to start us off?
Mary Alice Evans, Interim Director of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development as staff.
Okay, thank you.
Tom Eisen, staff here at the Environmental Review Program.
Kim Mishimoto, OPSD.
All right, thank you, folks. And Allison.
Allison Kato, Deputy Attorney General.
All right, thanks, Allison. All right, thank you, everybody. So as I said, we do have quorum, and there are no members of the public who have currently joined us. So I'll hand it over to Mary Alice for the director's update.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I'm going to apologize in advance. I have to leave the meeting at about 20 of 2 because our DBED Director, Jimmy Tokioka, has his confirmation hearing at 2 in the state capitol, and I will be testifying in strong support for his confirmation. So for the OPSD Director's update, I thought it may be of interest to the members to revisit that discussion about the wildfire emergency proclamations that originally, and I think maybe still do, waive Chapter 343 requirements for wildfire actions. And so we're still in the emergency response phase. That's the first 6 months where HIEMA and FEMA and the County of Maui are in charge of the initial actions that are coming up with replacement housing for those who lost homes, and disaster case management through our Department of Human Services, all things that do not involve land disturbance, or those things don't involve significant adverse environmental impacts. What does is the clearance of debris from both the Kula and Olinda homes that were burned down and the Lahaina burn areas, and the temporary landfill site at Olavalu. And those are going forward as quickly as possible. The next step that is still under the, I think it's under the emergency response phase, is temporary replacement housing. FEMA has done a National Environmental Protection Act, EA, excuse me. And we were able to assist in making that transparent for any member of the public by publishing a notice of that with a link to the document itself. And I think that's a really helpful use of our environmental notice. although it isn't something that we would have had to do because of the emergency proclamations and the presidential declaration of disaster suspended 343. The area that I think is going to be more challenging is the long-term recovery support functions, where it may be that the initial emergency proclamation will come to an end, and we will still be trying to get housing built before FEMA's 18-month, with possible extensions of 6 months, support for those survivors who lost housing but are in FEMA paid for direct lease or other kinds of rental assistance. And we're at the point where I believe in the rental assistance, those who were found eligible and are receiving payment, they now have to submit their rental agreements. So initially they could spend the money however they wanted, but now they have to, FEMA requires them to submit a rental agreement to show that the funding is going for rental assistance. And the other part that's going to be challenging, but is still under the emergency proclamation, is when the hotel contracts come to an end this month. And because Maui was already short of housing, that's going to be even more challenging. The map of the rental assistance does show, unfortunately, that eligible households, the addresses where they're receiving rental assistance are all over the country. People have had to leave Maui in order to find housing and work. And so it's, you know, we would want them to come back if they were local families, but that may be hard to do. Anyway, Chair, when the emergency proclamation expires and these urgent housing needs are the ones that have been built without a 343 EA or EIS, and the ones that will be built, which will then be subject to 343, but will still be, needed to be expedited in order to assure housing. It's going to be a very interesting time. And I'm sure the Maui folks have some observations on this that would be more particular and informed than I would. But I just wanted to let you know what the general landscape is for the Chapter 343 relationship to the wildfire emergency proclamations. Thanks, Chair. Open for questions.
Thanks very much, Mary Alice. I see Robin's hand up. I'm sorry, Robin, real quick, just for the record. I see that Dawn and Mike both joined in the meantime. Okay, go ahead, Robin.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mary Alice, this is a question not germane to what you spoke about, except it's germane to the fact that you have to leave early.
Oh.
And so based on that, in previous years, you folks have created a very helpful table of bills that are impacting our kuleana and your shared kuleana. And I wonder if you've done that again, and if so, would you be willing to share it with me as Legislative Committee Chair?
Our Ledge Coordinator, May Nakano, has produced a weekly list of bills, but they aren't sorted by the Environmental Review Program yet. I don't know whether she's got metadata or fields that she can sort by to narrow that down. Initially, Robin, the Office of Planning got over 200 bills referred to it by DBED. that wasn't the most. The energy office got 260, and I bet you HHFDC, based on what we could see, probably got 300 because of the critical need for housing. We can try to sort. I'll check and see if we can sort by, a field that would allow us to narrow that. It will narrow naturally, Robin, because, as bills, don't pass to the next committee or don't cross over, as you know, there'll be a lot fewer bills.
The challenge in part is when you go to the Ledge's site and you do a sort, say you put the keyword in of environmental impact, and 500 bills came up because it also includes last year's session.
Oh.
And,
Okay.
and so if you sort just for this year, you then narrow it down to about 200. You just have to be. So I was hoping you might have.
But Robin, all the bills from last year are still alive. You got to pay
I
attention to
know.
them.
I know.
Okay.
I know. No, that part I'm aware of. I'm just saying it was much more difficult this year for me to prepare a list than last year. So many of the bills about the green fee and the tourist impact fee, both from last year and this year, almost 50 of them, everybody and their sister and brother submitted a bill like that. Anyway, Mary Alice, thank you. I appreciate it. If you guys come up with a sort that would be helpful, please just share it with me. Otherwise, I'll just keep on going through the 500. Thank you.
Could I just add, the only bill that actually has been assigned to the ERP for review, and doesn't necessarily mean there aren't others, but it's SB 2002.
Right.
2002, which, as I recall, it kind of carves out an exclusion for affordable housing projects built by UH or the DOE.
Yeah, that's on our list for discussion later on in the agenda.
Right. Okay, but that's the only bill that really has come directly, like to the ERP to review and comment on.
Yeah, in the past, we've tried to create a table that gives us an opportunity to begin talking about bills on which we might want to testify. And obviously, as all of you know, the process has already begun. Hearings have already begun. So I won't take any more time. Thank you, Mary Alice. If you come up with something, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll just keep on trucking. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Robin.
you, Robin.
Ron, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, Mary Alice, I'm glad that you brought up the topic when you did. It's very timely of the relationship of 343 to the proclamations. There's anytime, let's say, a new housing subdivision needs to get built, there are probably 15 to 20 concurrent processes that are going on that involving permitting and investigations of various things. For some reason, Chapter 343 always gets called out as a bogeyman that is holding up housing, and it's something that we really gotta stop doing for housing projects. There's always bills in the legislature. People are speaking at it at conferences. And I just want to say, when NEPA was created, the rationale for it was 4 words used by the President, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. It was look before you leap. And I think it's still important to just remember that. Very simple. We have these long laws and rules, but really that's what we're doing. And I can't see that our society will be benefited if we start doing projects where we bulldoze over endangered species, we build in flood zones, we create traffic nightmares, we desecrate EEV, we start messing around in toxic and hazardous dumps, we build in areas of fire hazard. You still need to look at all that stuff. And it's great to do it in one place, in one process that's transparent to the public, that's accessible, that we're all familiar with. And it doesn't have to take years and years. Oftentimes that's really not the fault of the process. It's fault of the people who are implementing the process. And I just feel that we should not try to perpetuate and expand these emergency declarations over and over and over again until we get everything carved out of Chapter 343. There's going to be some really crappy housing with a bunch of bad environmental effects built if we do that. So that's the end of my lecture. Thanks.
Well,
Thanks.
Ron, I have to agree that our Hawaii Environmental Protection Act law is about public disclosure. And it does provide the kind of information that decision makers and the public need to decide whether they want to propose mitigations or oppose, a proposed program or project. What I do sometimes think happens is that opponents of projects have, because the Chapter 343 process comes at the beginning of a public review process, have found ways to appeal the acceptance of a 343 document in order to either stall or slow down a project that they dislike and feel are harmful. And so that may be where the perception comes. But the housing emergency proclamation no longer exempts 343. It also doesn't exempt 6E, which is for EV and archaeological assets. So it also doesn't exempt the Land Use Commission proceedings if the site is in the agricultural district. So I think the only one that we have currently outstanding are the two for Maui, the mayor's emergency proclamation for temporary structures and the governor's emergency proclamation for wildfires. And those will come to an end. Those are not long-term, I think. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mary Alice. Is there anybody else who had questions on Mary Alice's update?
I didn't have a question, but I had a comment.
Go ahead, then.
You know, I just talked to a friend of mine and they're moving out of their place so they can rent their place to FEMA, and they're getting $12,000 for their place in Haiku. So, you know, obviously the program's working for some people, but I also heard that a lot of people are getting displaced because of the FEMA program. So, you know, the FEMA program, you know, whether it's good or not, I'm not here to say that, but, you know, it's having an unintended consequence regarding local people housing. So local people are now getting kicked out because, you know, the money, people are getting 4 times as much for rent. And how will that really, you know, after this year or 2 years or however long the FEMA program is going to be, you know, how will they even find anybody to rent a place for $12,000? Because I don't know anyone who can afford a $12,000 rent, you know, even if you're a millionaire. So anyway, that's the only thing I wanted to say is it's really having unintended consequences. And then I did hear that someone from the planning department actually left because they couldn't find housing. So not only is it now affecting, you know, people and their ability to live, but actually jobs as well. So that's just food for thought.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Dawn. Anybody else questions on this topic? Well, Mary Alice, I think for the council, again, you know, we're later in the agenda, you see we have an action item to create a PIG, which I think will, part of the PIG's role will also be to continue discussions that you've brought up about, you know, rapid environmental assessments and looking at, you know, impacts for housing and whatnot. So I think, you know, hopefully we'll be able to continue this discussion and ways that the council can assist OPSD with these very important considerations. But all right, if nobody else has any other questions for Mary Alice, we'll move on to the next agenda item. All right, thank you very much. Okay, next up, it's review and adoption of the January 2024 meeting minutes. Does anybody need a time to review? We can take a couple of minutes to do so. Do folks need a little bit of time? I see some saying yes, some saying no. Okay, why don't we just take 2 minutes and then I'll check in with everybody.
Okay, can I move that the minutes be accepted as written?
Okay, do I have a second on that? Okay, second from Rachel, thank you. All right. Are folks doing a review? Do you folks need a little bit more time, or are there any amendments? Go ahead, Steph.
On the first page under public present, it is Nahe, Nahe, Nahe Parsons. And I believe both Nahe and Carissa are with the CAN Coalition,
Right, okay.
not Resources Legacy Fund. Thank you.
Thank you for catching that. Any other amendments or edits to the January meeting minutes? Okay, do folks still need some time? Is everybody okay? Robin, Rachel, are you amenable to amending your motion as amended? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor to approve the January 2024 meeting minutes as amended. If you can keep your hands up, all those in favor, please keep them up. Let's see. All right, and we are unanimous for the members that are currently present. Thank you very much. Kim, thank you very much for drafting the meeting minutes. Do you mind making those 2 edits that Steph
Yes,
mentioned?
we've got it taken care of.
Okay, thank you so much before posting. All right, great. Thank you. Okay.
So that, sorry, Onana. So the edits would be in number 4 as well.
In number 4 as well. Oh, okay, good catch. Yeah. Right. It does say from see. Okay. Also on page 2 and number 4, Kim.
Good job to our minute maker for all of the cacophony of our meetings to have made it so, make us sound so logical and intelligent is a great gift. So thank you very much.
Good job, Kim. All right. Thank you, folks. Okay, next up, we have exemption committee update. And I did mistakenly put that the DHHL list would be discussed, but yeah, Michelle, if you wanna, that was actually for, yeah, go ahead.
It was meant for the exemption committee, but it made it on. Did anybody, we weren't actually planning to discuss it with the full council, but since it was on the agenda, did anyone review the list or have any comments that they wanted to share about the list or to the exemption committee?
Yeah, and just to let everybody know, so the it's a rather lengthy list. Exemption committee got about halfway through today on our own internal review. So what we're planning to do in March is to continue our internal review, and then the following meeting after that, we would invite, well, after that meeting, Michelle will reach out to DHHL staff to talk about the edits and invite them to the next meeting so we can actually talk through it before we bring it to full council for a vote to put it out to public comment. So that's where the exemption committee is in its process, since it's a pretty lengthy list.
Yeah. Since it didn't make it on the agenda, I didn't want to skip over if anybody read it and had comments. Sounds like not. So, yep, that's the only thing that's listed on this agenda. So that's all I have right now.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
Sure.
All right, so no members of the public. I am going to ask Ron, as the chair of the PIG, to please present agenda item number 5.
Okay. Okay, I guess I'm ready. It'll help if people have read it because it's long and a lot of complicated ideas in there. I know Robin read it. Thank you, Robin, for having read it. You know, we were addressed to we were formed to help make the exemption process work better. It's you know, exemptions are the base of the pyramid for environmental analysis. You got tons and tons of exemptions made by agencies every day. Some of them are unconscious or with impaired consciousness. I don't know. And then you have EAs, and then you have just a few EISs, maybe 10 a year, are prepared for different projects. But exemptions are important because that's where agencies decide, do they need to do a lot more investigation or not on something? And so improperly conducting investigations leads to a lot of pilikia with the public. Quite often people are doing things and they didn't properly investigate it. Like I was talking with Mary Alice, how many times have we seen these things like literally endangered species being bulldozed, EV being dug up, flood conditions caused major traffic jams occurring out of nowhere. So we want to make sure that we get it right. And I think I can report from the big picture is that about half the agencies in our state have taken the new rules to heart and have carried on the good work that they did before we had the new rules into the present. And they're continuing to look at every project they do that has some potential to impact things and make some sort of exemption determination about it. Our rules allow 2 different types of decisions to be made. One are for very trivial things where no documentation has to be made, no consultation has to be made, and no notification has to be done. When you buy the proverbial pack of paper clips, don't have to do that. Then you get the bigger ones where you do have to do some sort of a notice. You have to ask people around you, agencies, groups, smart individuals who know the area, what's going on? You know, do we have an issue? And then you have to make your exemption determination available for the public to look at. And our wonderful friends at OPSD ERP, on the 8th of each month, they publish a list of the exemptions in a spreadsheet done by different folks. And Michelle did a deep dive into this as part of our committee and found that a lot of them are doing it, but also that a lot aren't. And this is due to a couple problems. One is ignorance. Not everybody knows every law the way, you know, we know it, even people who are in charge of doing it. And then laziness is another one. And maybe once in a while a little corruption, but I didn't say that. But you know, there's various reasons for not doing it. And we want to address the ignorance and laziness part. We want to make everybody aware of it. We want to make it easy for people to do their job. You know, we don't want to make it too difficult that it takes away from the vital work that they have to do. I think that's what we've always kept our mind on in this council as long as I've been aware. So we came up with a list of 4 problems that we see out there, and that's in the PIG report on page 4, where it says agencies that do not choose to update or develop an exemption list. And 2 is agencies that do not properly conduct the exemption process for Part 2 exemptions where they're supposed to consult, prepare notice, and make the public aware of it. 3, the question, and this is not a problem with agencies, this is a problem with our own rules and our own laws. And that's, you know, is it necessary for an agency to have an updated concurrent exemption list to be able to take advantage of de minimis exemptions? It's a complicated thought, and probably some of you are scratching your head trying to say, what is Ron trying to say here? I'm trying to say that technically, after 7 years of the rules being accepted, which is coming up in 2026, the agencies that have not done their exemption list will not be able to do de minimis exemption lists. And that means that technically they're going to have to do an exemption notice, consultation, and publication for every time they buy a box of paper clips, or promote a clerk typist 1 to clerk typist 2, or do anything in their office at all. This was, in my view, a flaw in the way we wrote the rules. We discussed it, we went round and round with it, but we just decided that, I think basically kick it to 7 years, something will happen by then. Everybody will do their exemption list. We don't have to worry about it. But as it turns out, everybody has not done their exemption list. We've gotten less than a third of agencies have done their exemption list. And even if we do everything in this pig report, I think we're going to still be missing another third. We might get 2/3 of the people to do it, but we won't get everybody to do their exemption list. And so are we going to enforce that? Are we going to say, yes, if you don't have an exemption list, you can't do de minimis? Our committee's divided on this. I think there's good arguments on both sides. So we went round and round and round on this for every meeting we had. And I think we wanted to bring it to you to decide what we should do here. How should we address this? Of course, that's in solutions, that's next. And part 4 was a more philosophical question, I guess you could say, about dealing with, we could sort of get rid of that other question if we could deal with this one, which is, what does the legislature mean by action? Now, we know that action means a project or a program, but what is a project or a program? You just keep going further and further down the definitional rabbit hole. Did the legislature intend for promotions to be subject to 343? Is that an action that they intended to be subject to it? Did they intend for the purchase of supplies to be an action, to be a project or a program subject to Chapter 343? Is this what they meant? They left they just said action. Our rules, which maybe someone in this room knows, although I'm practically, besides Mike, I think I'm practically the oldest person here, but our EIS rules date from the 70s, right? Tom, do you know? Yeah, 70s. They were redone in 96. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, yeah, they were redone in 96, but there were rules before that came into effect quite a while ago. I don't know the exact date.
I don't either. If you ever find those, would you send it to me? I've never been able to find them. But I have seen the 96 rules, and of course we amended those in 2019. And our rules have carried through, I believe, from the very first iteration, this concept that that purchase of supplies, administrative activities, promotions, personnel activities are all part of 343. Our rules took the legislative word action, which was that defined in the statute as project or program? Oh, no, it was originally, right. We took action and project and program, and we created that. And I don't know the arguments that took place in 1996, but they didn't change it.
So project and program are not defined in the 1996 rules. It's defined for the first time in our 2019 rules in response to the 2017 Umberger Supreme Court case that attempted to define project and program because we did not have a definition for project or program in either statute or rule.
Right. So now we have that. But in any case, we included among activities that could be exempted certain types of actions, activities. Let's call them activities. And because they are listed in our rules as things that need to be considered under 343, presumably they are congruent to projects or programs. And I'm not sure that we want to keep that in there, that you know, there might be a reason for us to simply delete some of the things that we now call de minimis actions that we now have in the chapter 343 realm, delete them from the definition of project and program. So, you know, one solution would be to say, change project and program to not include de minimis activities, such as continuing administrative activities, personnel actions, purchase of supplies, etc. It's not in the rules now. It's ambiguous, really. It is. Because if you look at project and program, you'd say, no. Paper clips are not projects and programs. But in our rules, they're considered actions or activities. So this relates to exemption because it would really relieve these agencies of this, of even having to consider any of that stuff, or to be punished if they don't have an updated exemption list. So I kind of got into the potential solutions for problems 3 and 4, and that's what we want to consult you folks about. That was the conclusion of the PIG report, was punt to the Environmental Advisory Council. But for problems 1 and 2, the agency's not quite doing their job. We have decided that we've sent a couple of letters out to them before. We got some activity. It did spur some stuff, but I don't think it's going to do it anymore. So we think that we need a committee, 1 or 2 people on the council, hopefully with help from ERP staff, where possible, to go to the counties, meet with the counties, and have, you know, heart-to-heart talk about exemptions, try to get the key people, which maybe not be the directors, but the people right under the directors who actually have to do the work, and stay beyond, you know, sorry, Mary Alice, stay beyond, you know, a particular mayor's term, and meet with them and help explain this stuff to them, or encourage them to do this. And I think we can take care of problems 1 and 2. If we only use people on the island, the only budget we need is ERP flights, if it's not Oahu. If we use people off the island, then we got to fly them too. But I still think we're talking about, you know, a pretty minimal budget to help get these meetings. And I really feel that an in-person contact is what we need now. We've tried letters, we've tried phone calls, we've tried emails, but we're not getting too many customers in the exemption committee anymore. You know, once every 2 or 3 months do we get an agency come in. So, you know, after that terribly long introduction, I want to open it up to your comments and questions.
Go ahead, Dawn.
I have a big comment, Ron. You know, I think you should just put it in the environmental notice. Just put the last 2 pages in the environmental notice and say, this is what we've reviewed. Because the reality is if this is really accurate data, and, you know, I came from Department of Defense, and I remember they did their environmental list. That's how Anona wrangled me into the environmental council. And I don't see them on here. And so I think, you know, it's just a wake up call, and everybody reads the environmental notice, and it's just kind of like fact. Hey, if you haven't done your exemption list, you got to do your exemption list, and maybe not put it so far out there, like, you know, all the data, but just say, these are the agencies that we do have that have done their exemption list within the at least last 7 years, you know, and then maybe a little write-up about how, what you're saying, Ron, if they don't do it or they don't use something after 7 years, that, you know, they have to start doing the full administrative work, right? So that's just my suggestion, is put in the EA in the environmental notice and see what happens.
That's great input, Dawn. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Dawn. Robin?
Just a question, Ron, who was on the PIG? Was it just EAC guys, or were there other agency people, or what?
Yeah, we just stuck with EAC people. There were 4 of us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it was Ron, Michelle, Makala, and myself on the PIG.
And just a comment, if you're asking for like, you know, if I'm on Maui to go to Maui County, that's fine. I can make the time for that. But, you know, everything's in really big flux over here as far as the new planning director or the proposed planning director. So I'm not so sure that, you know, explaining how important it is really gonna, you know, there's only so much bandwidth, right? So, but come to Maui.
Yeah, and let me confirm process really quick. So for the PIG, right, Allison, the PIG can present its findings. Thanks, Mary Alice. Have a good session. We can present our recommendations to the board today, right? And at the next meeting is actually when the council can discuss thoughts on the recommendations. I think the comments we had so far were good. Okay, and so really, council members, you'll have more time to digest the PIG report. Today is really the presentation of, you know, what the PIG did, what the recommendations are, and we can further discuss potential solutions at our meeting in March.
Well, we certainly can have a discussion today. It's because, right, Allison? We can discuss we can't discuss the PIG?
PIG requirements are very specific. Any discussion and decision-making, if any, has to occur at a third meeting. The purpose is, I believe OIP said, to allow, I mean, I know there's no public members here currently, but it's to allow anyone, public or whatever, to be able to digest the report and then come back at a third meeting if they want to say something. That was the rationale given by OIP. But they are very clear that discussion is not allowed at the second meeting.
And it's at the chapter 92 funkiness again, so.
I'm confused as more than usual. Are you saying that we can't discuss at all the report today?
Yes, I can provide you with the OIP guidance. It's very clear.
Yeah, and so that's why, my apologies, I called on Dawn and Robin out of habit, but also then I recalled Allison had given us advice on this. So I thank you for those initial thoughts. I do want everybody to think on it because and as a PIG member, if number one, Ron, thank you for writing up this amazing report. It's very detailed. And you recalled our discussions over several meetings, and you got it down into something that was very easy to digest. So thank you for that. I think what we'll do for here, if you haven't already, take some time and read the PIG report before the next meeting. If there's other PIG members who want to just share a little bit more, and if I can, in terms of some of the recommendations, right, again, issues 3 and 4, again, if there is a new definition, for example, of action or project and program in 4, that might take care of the issue with 3. Now, food for thought on how do we get a new definition, right? Legislatively in chapter 343, we can add or delete definitions. We can propose that through legislation. So that's something to discuss for next time. And that's a proposed, recommendation of what we can do. To add a little bit of context for what Ron was saying with number 4 in terms of, how do we exclude stuff for statute? For those of you who are familiar with, 205A, for example, right, for SMA, there are, definitions of what is development, which brings you into special management area law. And then there is a specific definition that says development does not include a whole list of things. So that's one way we can propose to do it, right? So right now we have administrative, activities as a type of exemption, but statutorily a way we could potentially do it is to have, the definition of action be the same, but then say, action does not include the buying of the paper clips, administrative actions, personnel hiring, that type of thing, if we want to wholly exclude it from chapter 343. There were some of these discussions for those who were on the council back in, 2016, 17, 18, 19, when we were doing the rules about, do we fully exclude things from chapter 343, and people have different feelings on them. Some people really do think that everything that government does is within chapter 343, and that's why it's written the way it is. It doesn't mean it needs to stay that way. Again, if, somebody was to propose a bill that excludes certain things, statutes change all the time. So I think those are the types of things that we need to think about. A change that big could take some time, take some years. And I think a lot of us on the council now will no longer be on the council by that time. But, I think what I envision as part of this PIG and going forward is that we kind of set up the council going forward for what are your potential options. Can we do something in the interim with guidance on whether or not the council will recommend enforcement of, I don't actually think there are penalties in 343 for somebody not doing a part 1, part 2 list, except that they're not supposed to be doing, right, the part 1 exemptions. They're supposed to be listing everything. Again, who's going to enforce that? Who knows? But I think there may be some things we can do through guidance in the meantime, while the council thinks about initiating any legislative changes to 343 or doing additional rulemaking to, further refine these definitions, right? So it doesn't necessarily, maybe it doesn't need to be by statute. We'll have to look at that a little bit more on the legal side. Maybe we just do it through updated definitions and rulemaking. So those are all options. And I don't know, I think if everybody can just think about that, we can have, more in-depth discussion once that kind of settles in people's brains, what might be the better way to do it. I would say take a look at HRS, I think it's 20521, the definitions under the special 205A21, the definitions under the special management area section for at least what I had in my mind for this qualifies, this doesn't. Under the statute, we could do something like that. I don't know, Michelle or Ron, anything else to add?
I think in terms of, the outreach to the agencies, there's that large table at the end of the PIG report, which identifies, to Ron's point in the report, that the agencies that have lists are the ones that are doing the regular exemptions. And one thing that we talked about too is sort of the agency, sort of the strategy for reaching out to those agencies. And some agencies are more, applicant actions. They're not doing a lot of actions themselves, as the agency, and sort of the different approaches that we would take, to sort of have these tailored conversations to the different agencies. Again, some process more applicant actions and feel like, well, us as an agency aren't doing exemptions. We're not doing projects. And they're just being, a little bit of a distinction there that, again, not that they shouldn't do the list, they should. And why they should is because, they're the approving agency for applicant actions. So,
and of course, they're all doing part 1 part 1 exemptions. Every single agency is doing that.
Right. And the report also does mention, we have, delayed the INO forum, but that also being, a great opportunity to blast out, information and, to Don's point, if this is, published in the environmental notice or published widely, it'd be really nice to have a tie-in to something in writing that can be referenced publicly.
I just wanted to ask if Allison could send out the guidance on the permitted interaction groups. I looked at chapter 92. I can't find anything on it, but that's,
It's in the chat room.
Yeah, she sent it
in the chat.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and I guess food for thought before. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Robin, you first.
Well, first of all, and I wrote this to Ron this morning after I read it, this is a really incredibly well-written piece of information. It's clear, it's thoughtful, and it gives us a lot of really creative ways to think about the challenge. So good job, all of you from PIG and Ron as the writer. Secondly, I wonder if, even though the last, you have proposed solutions, but there's a lot of writing with it. And I wonder if, for the purposes of conversation and debate for the next meeting, if you, Ron, or the PIG, I guess it can't meet anymore, but if you could maybe it would be helpful to have one sentence proposals on the 4 issues that we could then debate and discuss and then come to some kind of closure. And I don't know that it needs to be a motion, but I wonder if it would be helpful to focus us if you just really took a stand, just for debate's sake, not your personal stand, and said, okay, here's what we should do for solution 1. Is that making any sense? I'm trying to see how we can have that conversation next month in a way that is focused and helpful.
Robin, it does, but as I'm looking at the guidance, maybe we have to kind of craft it. Maybe I can do a share screen during the next meeting because now that the PIG has made its presentation to the council, the PIG's done, dissolved, right? So
Okay.
maybe that's something we actually craft as we're having that longer discussion next month.
Well, if Ron doesn't have to do it as the chair of the PIG, he could do it. Couldn't he do it as a member of the EAC with his long history in the exemption committee? It's not necessarily, I'm just trying to thinking of a way for us to be able to have a rational conversation. And it's going to be all over the place unless we have some focused way of dealing with the recommendations, which are really great.
What if it was agenda items, just 4 points under the PIG discussion point and then 4 agenda items with a recommendation under each topic?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. And Ron, if you want to take a crack at it, but for example, for the recommendations for number 4 is because, we don't have just one recommendation under number 4, right? It is multiple recommendations. And part of what the PIG wanted to do was bring it to the council now for what is to discuss, what is the best approach for how do we tackle this. But I know, Ron, you as the drafter, the primary drafter of the PIG report, is that something you think you could whittle down a little bit more and I can put it into agenda item points?
So would that be acceptable, Allison? Because it's like continuing the PIG, isn't it? Or
You mean, I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Is it you're continuing the work that the PIG would have done?
I'm just trying to find a way to help the discussion. I'm just thinking of it in terms of process. Because there's so much information in each of these recommendations that I thought it might be helpful to say, okay, here's one way to do it. And
yeah, I think it's a great idea, Robin, first of all. Yeah. And I don't mind doing it, but I don't want to run afoul of the Sunshine Law by continuing the work of the PIG once it's been dissolved, which I guess is after we finish this.
It's automatically dissolved. That is what you're going to do about the things that are in the PIG's report. That is normally something you're supposed to discuss at the 3rd meeting.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is pulling it into bullet points that are less than what they are, just clearer bullet points, I guess, at this point that we could add to the agenda, not providing additional recommendation, but pulling from what's in there and just putting it into more bullet points.
It's not a requirement. If you're just saying that you wanted to do that, just because you want the agenda to be items to be more detailed.
That's what I'm understanding. Robin's question is that he wants it not more detailed, but just a little bit clearer, narrowed down, right? Yeah.
I'm thinking of it as a debate in the best sense of that word. And that oftentimes it's easier to respond to something that's specific. So you might, I don't know, and let's take an easier one. And number 1.
Well, I think we can't probably have this discussion right now.
Oh, but yes, we can, because we're talking about process. We're not talking about substance. I'm not talking about the substance of the PIG report. I'm talking about how we discuss it. And why
I don't know it to that extent. I think if you want to be sure, you have to go and ask OIP. I would defer to what OIP says.
Yeah, but I get what Robin is saying. About any PIG. So we're not talking about this PIG, but about any PIG. if they have a report and then you're going to discuss it at the third meeting, does it have to be decided upon at the third meeting, or can you do it at a fourth meeting?
You can do it at a fourth meeting. It can't happen until that next meeting is my
Okay,
understanding.
so maybe at the third meeting, we will have the ability at the end through our notes to have those sorts of things done. I mean, as long as nobody's gonna put me in chains, could make the bullet points, but
No, I don't think anybody will. I think if you're just basically whittling down what's on page 4 and 5 to kind of more succinct points, is that's what you're asking, Robin?
Mhm.
Okay. If you want to take a shot at that, Ron and I can put it in the agenda for the next discussion.
yeah, I, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my last meeting, right?
Crap. Yep.
So, I won't be, presenting it, but
That's my understanding too.
yeah. So, you know, happy to stay involved in some way. I mean, want to follow through this issue.
I mean, you can help with the agenda. I mean, the presentation's over, so there's nothing really to present. It's really just a discussion at the next meeting. I
And
don't.
there's nothing off the table in a discussion.
Sorry?
There's nothing off the table in a discussion.
Yeah, it's whatever was in the report, the board can discuss. Or the council can discuss.
Okay, so, I mean, someone could write a letter, right? And give it to the chair, and the chair can include the letter in the agenda?
You mean testify? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ron, you can join as a member of the public.
Yes.
March 5th meeting. Yep. Okay, thank you. And thanks everybody for hanging in there. I know we all very much love sunshine process. And we're doing our best to comply.
Be
So-
careful, Ron. I think I just heard you become our permanent public member.
You gotta have somebody, right?
Yeah. No, thank you. All right. Well, again, unless any of the other PIG members have anything else to present, want to again thank you, Ron, and thank you, Michelle and Maka'ala, who's not here, but everybody was very helpful, and we had some lively discussions, as you can imagine. And Ron, thanks for drafting this, because this is really great, and I know it was a lot of work. So we'll continue. We'll have our actual discussion on the report at the next meeting in March. And yeah, anything else, Michelle, Ron? Okay, we'll continue on. Mary, I did just include an update in case you had anything on discussion and planning of future forums.
The next forum was going to be the one with Michelle, and she asked us to give her some space, so that's what we were doing. I personally did some, just as an individual in this capacity, did some research on the reservoir situation on the Big Island through the geologists that I know socially. So I'm kind of doing that, gather data, get ready for the meeting kind of stuff. So, I'm not on vacation, there wasn't anything to call a meeting for. It's just Dawn and I, and we technically could just talk on the phone. But I don't want to get anybody excited over that we're violating any rules. So we don't talk on the phone. And and I'll bring my stuff forward at that, when we do have the opportunity, when it's appropriate to me. So thank you for having me on the agenda. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Mary. Okay, next up, it's discussion of an action to approve creation of a permitted interaction group to discuss and determine how the EAC can fulfill its role in advising OPSD on key environmental issues such as, but not limited to, those listed below, including discussion of creating a consultation process between the EAC and OPSD. Some of the issues to be included: cesspools, green fee, Department of the Environment, creation of a Department of the Environment, emergency proclamations for environmental permitting, and OPSD's task on, asking the EAC for input on housing related issues, including rapid environmental assessments, etc. And just as a reminder, this was something that came up in a last couple of meetings about how can we, again, working on our relationship with OPSD now that we're kind of in our new home for a couple of years now, how can we support OPSD in a lot of their tasks? So there was a suggestion at a past meeting that maybe a permitted interaction group be created for this purpose, to allow for, kind of more in-depth and candid conversations. So do we have a motion to create the PIG? Anyone? Okay, Mary,
This is Mary, I so move.
thank you. And a second? Mike, okay, saw your hand up first. All right. We're now in discussion about creating the PIG. So I would propose that it includes all of the topics that were just listed on the agenda. Does anybody else have anything to add in terms of scope for the PIG? Go ahead, Steph.
I just have some context questions, and forgive me if I'm forgetting the conversation. I sort of broad brushstrokes really liked the idea. And I think we've talked about that, and part of this maybe came out of the annual report discussions a little bit, but questions around sort of, does OPSD want our help, and how do they want our help, and what does that process look like? And so it's kind of like that engagement and process, and then sort of the specifics, down to brass tacks, like, do they really want our opinion on CES? I want to make this worthwhile and beneficial on both sides. So, and forgive me if these conversations have already happened and I don't know about them, but I just wanted to hear a little more context if it exists. Robin, please.
Yeah, that was a great comment, Steph. You're right on the nail. This came about, if I recollect properly, was Mary Alice asked us a question, and we got into a discussion, and Allison pointed out that we were unable to have that discussion at that time.
It wasn't agendized. That's
well, for whatever reason, we were not allowed to have that conversation at that time. And so whereas there was some discussion about, well, how do we have those kinds of discussions? How do we respond? How do we fulfill our stated kuleana of providing, or the opportunity, again, it's not a requirement, it's the opportunity to provide advice to the director of OPSD. And so that's how this came about. That's the reason for it. I'm not sure that that we should do this anymore. This particular PIG, I'm having real trouble agreeing that this is a good idea. I'd be glad to listen to everybody else's thinking about it, but it's really troubling me.
How so, Robin? And the reason I'll push you a little bit more is because, and it may not have been you, and I don't recall who suggested that a PIG be made, but I thought it was in part from.
It was me. But I've changed my mind. I'm allowed to do that, I think. And,
no, you are, and that's, yeah. If you can just expand a little bit, because. Yeah,
I think that the sunshine makes this process so difficult for us. I understand that it's a requirement for us, but this conversation has to be had in the context of sunshine. I think Allison would have to be. I don't know if she's allowed to be a member of the PIG, if you put one together. But we would have to have that kind of guidance, because so much of these conversations are within the sunshine, what I say, sunshine restrictions to how we function. So given that, I'm very reticent to do this again.
Thanks, Robin. Ron, you have your hand up.
Well, it seems like some of the issues are urgent, and they're there's legislative actions out there, and the PIG meets, even if the PIG met over just 1 month, and then had to get formed first, then it could meet, then it could present its recommendations, and then there could be action. Legislature's gonna be over by then, so it may not be the best vehicle for that. To support what Robin just said, but maybe not for some of the other topics.
Sure. Thanks, Ron. Rachel, go ahead.
I was just going to note, one thought and one question. I think
one was like, I understand sunshine and the speed at which the pigs need to work, because since it's a kind of the pig itself is not sunshined then, but when it releases its report, that's the first time anyone is hearing about it, because no one had the opportunity to go to those committee meetings, right? And so I do get why there's a sort of waiting period for like the next time to have full discussion on it. I think that then is going to be, like Ron and Robin noted, slow for this particular ledge session, but I do think that, to me, these questions were bigger than ledge session. They were around how the EAC, generally speaking, I don't think we're going to get this fixed in a month, is how the EAC is generally speaking can interact and advise. And so I guess, could a deputy AG not necessarily be a member of the PIG, but can they attend a PIG meetings to advise, as Robin was noting? Because I do think that because of the content of what this group would be useful to talk about, it seems like either a PIG with a attending deputy AG or like an ad hoc committee that sunshines their meetings, either one of those would work, but obviously those will be on a either one of them, I think, to me, is going to be on a slightly longer timeline. Regardless, I think the conversation probably needs to happen one way or the other. It's just the framework.
Allison, could you elaborate on the thing you just put in the chat, the 2-sentence summary of that?
It's options that OIP has provided to deal with the fact that legislative session happens fast. They provided examples in recognition that it's difficult to comply with sunshine law during legislative session. I think a lot of other boards usually delegate it, the authority to deal with legislation, to one or more people. I'm not that familiar with the other options, but one of them is the PIG.
We have some of these issues, and again, these were really, am I mute? No, but these were really to give an example of how we might have conversations. This came about, as we said, because of Mary Alice's request for us to in a particular issue. Fact that we already have a process. We already have a process for submitting testimony, and are going through that. So these are not just related to legislative issues. They're more than that, I think.
Well, one of them was on the rapid environmental assessment thing that we just happened to bring up and we couldn't talk about at the last meeting. And somebody suggested a PIG might be a good venue for that, for those who were interested. Mary Alice was interested. She asked for it. So, I think that would be a good one if there's anybody on the committee, if there's more than one person on the committee interested in that. And, there's no rapid response required.
Thanks, Ron. Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, I really agree with the need and the opportunity to bring our voice to help OPSD. And I think it's, one of the values that we as a council have. We're broad. We come from a lot of different islands and expertise. And I really, as I think a lot of us have, see that as a absolute benefit. But there's sort of no channel, if you will, or formal channel or opportunity to really be able to have the opportunity to help OPSD and to weigh in on sort of critical issues of the time. Some of that's sunshine, but I think also some of it's just our process. And this, right, we're new bedfellows with OPSD. We're figuring this out. And so I see a lot of value in having conversations about what might that process look like. And is that necessary? And is that something OPSD wants? And it sounds like from conversations with Mary Alice, it would be. So anyway, I support continuing the conversation. And if that needs to happen through a PIG, I think it's really valid. Particularly as the council is looking to transition with a lot of new members on it.
Thanks, Steph. Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think the process definitely needs to be looked at, whether, so I guess we do have a motion on the floor to create the PIG. So if folks want to create it, you'd vote aye. If folks do not want to create it, you vote no, right? We can also further limit the scope if we want to create a PIG just for process, or in the alternative, if folks want to just continue these discussions in open session, we can do that as well. Right? We can do it in open session. You know, when I make the agenda so that we're sunshine compliant, I just need from folks specific items on what you want to discuss. Where we get caught up, and I think why the PIG came up is because, you know, there is a delay. There's like a week between when the agenda gets made and stuff happens in that week, and then people naturally want to talk about it. So, I mean, if everybody's fine continuing to operate under normal sunshine, we can do that, right? I just need, as best as folks can, to give me your specific agenda items so that I can add them to the agenda, so that we can have as full of a discussion as we have. And again, if people don't want to do the PIG, we just got to recognize, I think part of this is, I know a lot of members get really fed up when, you know, there's oh, it's not sunshine, it's not agendas, we can't talk about it, right? So then the PIGs come up as a potential solution. So we just got to remember that, okay, if we're doing it via open session, we just got to comply with sunshine.
So are you saying, Renata, that we could, for example, on the next agenda for March, simply have how does, I may not word this properly, but we could simply say, how does the EAC provide recommendations on housing to OPSD? And we
Yes,
could
and
then
yep, and we can talk about it. I mean, I have that. I mean, that's one of the topics, and we actually had that on for strategic planning committee update, right? So I mean, we could talk about it then. I mean, we can work with this language on discuss potential process for advising OPSD, you know? So, I mean, if there's stuff you folks want, please just, you know, give me language and I can put it on there and we can talk about it. The only reason that we couldn't talk about it at that, I think it was 2 meetings ago, is because the specific question that was asked was not agendized. It wasn't that you can't talk about it in open session at all. We just got to be better about what's on, you know, be more descriptive in our agendas.
I think the advantage to having it on the full council agenda is then everybody's present for the conversation as opposed to just the members of the PIG.
Mm-hmm.
There's a benefit there, but if the PIG is focused to, you know, to a more general, how can EAC serve OPSD better, you know, maybe that's a topic for the PIG. But yeah, when I saw the proposal, it seemed like the PIG was chunky, you know, like it had a lot of goals and like I think some of them could go on the agenda where maybe the PIG could focus to this idea of how it can fulfill its role. Maybe.
Yeah, so I mean, for the next one, if folks can just help me with crafting the language, if there's, again, if there's something you want me to put on there, you need to tell me, and I email the committee chairs, right? I'm like, give us your agendas for your committees and tell me what you need on full council. And when I say that, I mean, tell me what you need for an agenda item so that I can put it in to the agenda, right? Happy to do that.
Could I comment briefly on
Hi, Tom.
this?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think these discussions are great. And I like, it's more not so much the context, whether a PIG is appropriate or through the open sessions. I know they're both complex and difficulties, but just be mindful of, I guess, the transition of the council with the new members, well, old members leaving, hopefully new members coming. And then the limitations here of what these discussions of these big topics are great, but I don't know how they're going to be like operationalized, talking about cesspools and whatnot. I mean, there's great stuff to talk about and for it to be put out there. at the moment, we're kind of just trying to get by with getting the notice put out. And so I think some of these the discussions earlier about exemption, which is very much a core thing that we do, are very relevant. These other ones, I just hope we could use the information that you wanting to talk about for these bigger conceptual projects. I think they're great topics to be talked about. I'm just hoping that we could use it so that all the time is honored and you don't put a lot of work in and we do things that we're just kind of not able to do anything with. So just something to be mindful of. But I think a great resource and great discussions can be had about a lot of topics.
Thanks, Tom. Point taken on that. So, okay, I mean, again, so it sounds like folks, well, okay, let's take a vote. Again, the motion is to create the pig. So is there any further discussion on the motion to create the pig? Okay, so all those in favor of creating the pig, please raise your hand. Okay, so we have 2 members for, member Terry and Kinnaman. All those who are not in favor of creating the pig, please raise your hand. Okay. All right, we have everybody else except for Steph. Are you abstaining?
I am. This conversation has become really muddled for me, as I'm sure perhaps others. So I don't know.
Okay,
I'm
sorry.
frustrated.
It's okay. Understood. So wait, those against, please keep your hands up. I just gotta do another count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, is that enough for the motion to carry? 7. Yeah, I think of the members we actually have. Okay, so no pig is being created. I will, sorry, Dawn, you have a question or is that just for your vote? Okay. For next month I will have an agenda item for discussion of a process and how the EAC can help OPSD in, I'll need help with the language.
If you go back,
Sorry, go ahead.
if you go back to last month's minutes, under the Strategic Planning Committee update, where those 5 issues are listed, there also were 4 points that the Planning Committee recommended on how to have those discussions. So I think we could incorporate that into the agenda. Onauna, on number 7, the paragraph under the bold, that gives us some kind of direction on the process for how to provide, what do we need to do? Number 3 is recommending the formation of a pig. So that's moot.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I'll help draft draft an agenda item for you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be helpful. And then we can include a more detailed discussion on that with an open session with everybody. And we'll check with, maybe we'll have that earlier in the agenda, so Mary Alice can hopefully join and we'll check with her schedule. Which will probably depend on, what bills are being heard by the legislature that day.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I think having Mary Alice there is going to be key because that's where this whole conversation came from.
Right. It was her request to have support from the council. Yeah, correct. Right. Agreed. Okay. Well, that's good. So no pig created. Anything else on that before we move on to the next? And thank you, Robin, for assisting with creating the agenda item for next month.
Sure.
Okay. So next one up, I put it under legislative committee, even though I know the leg committee didn't meet, but it was 2 bills that ERP forwarded to us. I don't know, Robin, did you want to lead discussion on this?
Only to say that there's been no further action on either of those 2 bills. They haven't moved at all. There is, Allison, am I allowed to call attention to a bill to be discussed at a later time?
You mean talk about a bill that's not
I don't
on,
want to talk about the bill. I just want people to look at a bill so we can talk about it next time. How about that?
I guess you can just name the bill.
Okay, it's, I'd encourage you all to take a look at SB 3047. So we can
That's
talk.
funny. I just got an alert for that from somebody else. I just finished reading it.
Yeah, there's a
I'm
hearing
not allowed
on
to
the,
say that, am I? Okay, bye-bye.
there's a hearing on the 8th, so we won't be able to submit testimony, but that may be just the first of subsequent hearings. So just take.
Could you repeat that bill number, please? I'm sorry.
Sure. SB 3047.
I'll add that to the agenda for March. And I realized, Robin, I neglected to add our normal agenda item to designate me and you for doing testimony on behalf of the council. But I guess if, within the next month, if something urgent that the council feels we need to testify on, we can do so, in our individual capacities. If there's something big that we want to.
Do we have to do that again? Don't we already have permission from the council to do that?
To submit testimony?
Yeah. Why do we have to do it again?
For this session?
We had it for last session, but there's not a fiscal year requirement within which we have to function, right? If the council gave us permission for last session, do we need to do it again?
I mean, I think we've typically done it on a yearly basis. I don't know that we need to, but I think we do need council consensus on, well, we need to have spoken about the bills. Like, for example, for tomorrow, like if I went and testified tomorrow on a bill that we didn't talk about.
Sure.
I
Okay.
couldn't testify on behalf of the council, right? Yeah. So, I mean, good point. Maybe we don't need that agenda item.
Robin,
Okay.
Yes.
if you could, and if there's any point in it, I'll let you be the judge of that. Could you explain those bills? I did try to read them and understand them, but could you give just a real summary of what those bills are trying to do? I got lost.
You mean the two that OPSD suggested we look at?
Mm-hmm.
The ones on the agenda?
Yeah.
Well, one, the SB 2002 puts an exemption for housing projects. It was presented by the Minority Caucus. I don't know the political implications of that, but maybe that's part why it's not moving forward. And the other one, we've seen that 1702 was put forward by Reps Matsumoto, Alcos, Garcia, Perrick, and Ward. Again, the House Minority Caucus. And that is to reduce zoning restrictions for affordable housing development.
Yeah, that's the one that I really didn't quite understand very well. It'd be really helpful to have Mary Alice here.
Yeah, I don't
to
know much.
Interpret that bill. It seemed like it sort of got rid of zoning.
Hey, Tom, I'm trying to just join by my cell phone. My computer is about to die. Will you let me in, please? Sorry.
It's not.
Forgot my charger today, guys. Sorry about that.
No,
Oh, no.
it doesn't say waiting.
Oh, there we go. Just tried to join.
There.
I don't know how to answer that for you, Ron. It's all about zoning, and you're much more knowledgeable about that relationship than I am. I just know that it's not going anywhere yet.
Which
Well,
bill
if
is
it's as
that?
radical as it looked, then
1702, HB 1702.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And the other one, 2002 is, oops, come back here. Again, it's went to 3 committees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 committees.
Oh.
And as Mary has taught me, that means it's pretty much a death knell. Yeah, Mary, I got that right. Yeah, 5 committees, not happening. So I didn't pay great attention to either of those, Ron. We put them on the agenda. I'm working through that. Every year I provide a table with all the bills that we are, that have some direction to us. I wasn't able to do it because there's so many in time for this meeting. I'm about 3/4 of the way through that. And so for the next meeting, I'll have that for us. I realize that's a little bit late and I apologize for that. It was just over too much. 520 bills to go through. So no excuse. I will have that, try and have it for you next time.
Just to clarify, Robin's right about what I said about 5 committees, but this isn't to discuss the bill, it's to discuss legislative process. This bill has 2 joint referrals and then another referral. So it's really only 3 hearings, not 5. It just has to have, you have to have housing and water, land have to meet together, and then education and higher ed have to meet together. What that tells me is a whole bunch of people want credit for passing this. This is an ego bill, not necessarily anything to do something good in our community. So.
Yeah, and I'll try to make this process a little bit easier for us at the next meeting with that list of bills.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Robin. And even for any other council members, you know, if you're monitoring bills and you want them added to our next agenda, just let me know and I can list them. And these 2 came, you know, through ERP for, you know, early in session. So, you know, thanks, Tom and Kim, for kind of forwarding those to us to keep them on our radar. But yeah, we just got to list them to talk about them. So
Yeah, Ron, there's one
Well,
more.
Senate Bill 3047 has much stronger legs and is better written bill.
Right,
than
and it's got a hearing on the 8th. One other bill I would ask you to look at, this is particular interest of mine, but I think it's a really interesting one, and especially for you lawyers. Take a look at HB 1629. It has to do with renewable energy. It's got a hearing on the 13th. Onana, you might find it to be a really interesting bill.
Okay.
I know we can't discuss it. Just take a look at it, and we'll add that to our discussion next meeting.
Okay. We'll do. Thanks,
Onana,
Robin.
you're back with us. Yeah, Onana, you should look at that one particularly as an attorney, I think.
Okay, I'll take a look. Can you
Okay.
folks hear me? Yeah.
That's it. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I don't have that list for you yet.
Nope, that's all right. Thanks, Robin. Okay, so before next meeting, it's Tuesday, March 5th. Well, shoot, Ron, I'm sorry we didn't get you like a lay or something to you, but thank you so much for your service. It's not goodbye. You're gonna be a public member going forward. But no, thank you so much for all you've done for so long. I want to let you guys know I have been sending emails and calls to boards and commissions. I reached out to our friend, our mutual friend that we all know in the governor's office, and have asked to be put in touch directly at boards and commission. So I may need to go to Senator Gabbard and Rep. Lowen next. I'm hoping that going straight to Gov's office helps, because we really, really do need to get folks appointed. I know we have at least 2 or 3 applicants that are already in the pipeline. But I'm really feeling the pressure now, because I know we got to get them put on before March. We got to get them appointed before March to get them appointed. If not, there's a real fear that council will lose quorum. And Tom and Kim, I don't know, you know, Mary Alice isn't here right now, and I had actually intended to make a plea to her if there's anything that she can do on her end, because there's I think more than half of us are gone, you know, if we don't get folks reappointed for this session. So go ahead, Mary.
Well, they're having hearings. I mean, other boards and commissions are getting attention. So
I know,
that's just kind of weird.
I've even sent emails from both my Gmail, which is what I use for council, and my work email in the hopes of getting a response, but I have not, and as well as left voicemail. So I'm continuing to try. And like I said, I reached out to our friend in Gov's office, you know, and I was like, hey, can I please get somebody to call me back? Because as I look at this list, I mean, there's so many of us, we can't go beyond really June 30. I think some of us can maybe hold over to November, but it would be better if we get folks appointed. And really, I mean, Rachel and Michelle, you guys are going to kind of be carrying the torch going forward. And Dawn, right? I mean, with the rest of us, old folks kind of getting off this board, unfortunately. And then you guys are great additions, and I have all the confidence in you. But but yeah, we're trying to get you some new members so you at least have quorum and can hold meetings and continue the work that we're discussing. So I am really trying, folks. And yeah, Robin, I don't know, maybe if you have the bandwidth to reach out to Senator Gabbard and Rep. Lowen. I mean, I know they are having confirmation hearings, and I think getting department heads in, I understand that is really important.
I will do that, Onana. I was just waiting for your permission. I will draft something and run it by you, and I will then contact both Gabbard and Lowen, because this is untenable.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I had to send, I was like, I hate to bother this person, and texted them, and I was just like, hey, I don't know what more to do than leaving. I've left contact emails and, you know, emailing from multiple email accounts. And I've gotten zero response for this particular board and commission. And, you know, I think that, I don't know that it's a comment on priority, but you know, maybe it is. In any event, I'm trying, guys. And yeah, Robin, if you can draft something, that'd be really, really great. Thank you.
I will. I'll get it to you first before I send it to them.
Okay.
One other thing before I forget on the ledge, take a look, or you don't take a look, just to let you know that DBED submitted our annual report. It was D like David, C like Charlie, 262, if you want to double check on the ledge website. It includes the Environmental Advisory Council's annual report. It was submitted by DBED. I thought it was going to be submitted by OPSD, but I guess the protocol is it's submitted by DBED. So Steph, that's congratulations to you. It's actually out there now. And they have your home number and your address on it as well. So.
Wait, are you joking?
I'm kidding.
Okay.
She's joking. Well, you know what? Good. Now we know the process, you guys. Now we know how this thing gets distributed.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, thank you folks for your hard work on that.
Thank you, Onana.
Yeah, I know this is all you folks, so thank you so much. But I don't know anything else. I mean, that's all I have. Ron, again, we're gonna miss having you on and your wealth of knowledge, and thank you for finding Michelle, who's, I know was your intended replacement, and she's actually on, and it's great. So thanks for all your hard work.
It's been 8 years of barrel laughs. Thank you.
And nice fights, little friendly fights.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
Pillow fights. Yeah.
right. Okay, folks. Well, yeah, we're looking at Tuesday, March 5th. Agenda deadline, including getting me any agenda items that you want on the full council, will be, what are we looking at? January 26th, Friday, January 26th, please. Yes, okay. Committee chairs.
Is it February 26th?
Sorry.
23rd. February.
Thank you.
Is it the 23rd? I mean,
3rd then.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Say it again, please. What's the date?
Friday, February 23rd, agenda deadline.
Okay.
February 23rd. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was really in the wrong month. Oh shoot, I gotta take down the calendar. Okay. Well, if we don't have anything else, thanks again, everybody. And we'll keep working and getting folks appointed. All right. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, Onana.